Keyed In with Max and Brent, unlocking the minds of the industry's top real estate professionals. And now, here are your hosts, Max Rabin and Brent Jackson.
So welcome to a very special episode of the Keyed In podcast. Max and Brent can't be here today, so I'm filling in for them. So today on the podcast, we have John Coleman from Coffee with Coleman. John Coleman is a highly innovative real estate agent in the DC metro area, known for his expertise in educating buyers. You might know him from his social media content, which is extremely consistent and high value. John likes to take his followers through homes at high speed, highlighting home features along the way. He is a managing partner with the Jason Martin Group and has been recognized as a rising star in the industry by DC Real Producers magazine. And then I'm Jamie Manning, your guest host, creator and founder of ExposedBrickDC. So, John, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Jamie. It's awesome to be here with a legend, just hanging out.
I know.
Having fun.
I know. I feel like we're going to talk a lot about content creation and how you got so much traction in what seems like a short period of time, but I know you've been putting in a lot of hard work.
And this is actually a replicate to something that didn't happen on something like this the first time around. Like the first time we ever sat down was we grabbed coffee after you shared one of my posts.
Right.
And like we just spitballed. And the time got away from us. I think we were there for like 45 minutes, an hour.
Yeah.
And we just kind of had fun and kind of went from there.
Yeah, no. And since we got coffee, that's a good segue into why is your handle Coffee with Coleman? How did that all start?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
You'd think that I'm a coffee connoisseur. And actually someone commented on my YouTube videos recently that they'd never see me with coffee.
That's true.
I do have coffee today, by the way.
That's a good point. I haven't thought about that.
I think, to be honest with you, it was more just it kind of rolled off the tongue. And I like the way that it is. If I was being truthful, it'd probably be Red Bull with Coleman, because that's kind of more like before I go do a house tour, I'll swing by 7-Eleven and grab a Red Bull, just get the energy up and get going. But it kind of just flowed off. And then I kind of created a little bit of a logo. And I was like, let's run with it. And then once you start running with something, you're not going to change it. So now it's just kind of like, that's the thing.
Yeah.
And it was just the YouTube channel for a while. And then eventually I changed my Instagram handle to Coffee with Coleman, because forever it was still like my AOL screen name from way back in the day. And I was like, all right, we're gonna change this. Let's update it. Okay,
wait. So you were on YouTube before you were on Instagram?
Yes. Okay. I've been on YouTube since before pandemic, so like 2018 or 2019 is when I started there.
Okay, yeah. And so what kind of content were you putting on YouTube in the beginning?
So all like first-time homebuyer stuff.
Okay.
So the way that came about was whenever I was looking to learn something, I went to YouTube. I don't know if you do the same thing, but like I still do that to this day. It's like, and if I was going to learn something, I was like, why don't I try to do this too? So I started to release some really poor YouTube videos. Like if you get a chance, go back. If you want some inspiration about like where you can start and how you can improve from there, just go to like my very first video where I'm sitting in the conference room at my old brokerage and like the thing's flapping and like the lens is dirty and it's like, but I got it out there.
Right.
So that started it, and I just decided I really didn't want to stop it because I enjoyed it.
No, and I've kind of noticed that too about my own content. It's kind of humbling to go back to the beginning and see what kind of content you're putting out there and the growth, because I think that there is this, I don't know if you feel this way, this constant pressure of, oh, I should be innovating, I should be doing more, and I need to keep up. But when you really take a step back and see how far you've come, then I think that helps kind of alleviate some of those fears.
Definitely. And the beauty is once you've locked into something that you like and it's kind of taking off, you are able to tweak it and do different things. And I've seen that through the way that you're doing it. One of the things that we talked about when we grabbed that first coffee was like, I kind of want to get on camera a little bit more and show my face. And guess who's been showing her face a whole lot more? Jamie has, which is
but
awesome.
It's scary.
It is scary. Like I always tell people I have like an unsung benefit of like not the most handsome dude in the world. So like I have no fear. I don't have to really get ready. I can kind of just jump on camera and be ready to go at any given time.
Yeah.
And some people that's just tougher. So
no, and no, I commend you for that, because the only time I'm really showing my face is stories, because stories go away. And so that's kind of been my little toe in the water. I'm showing my face more on TikTok. I have less followers there, so it seems less scary. But yeah, I think you I think experimenting with different kind of content is key and trying to figure out what gets traction. But I feel like you got traction pretty early on. I feel like there wasn't a ton of experimenting, that as soon as you caught on to kind of your signature video of, you know, what does $1.6 million get you? As soon as that clicked, I feel like you just really doubled down on it.
Yeah. I think it was that one, it was naturally taking off a little bit because one of the first houses that I showed that got really big was one from Joel Nelson. That was a pitch pine house. And it was the one with that garage in the back that had all that stuff. And like,
what neighborhood was it in?
That was Hill. That was just north of Lincoln Park.
Okay.
And it had that big garage in the back that had like a 2-unit thing above the garage. And it was just massive and beautiful. Yeah. You know, pitch pine, you know.
Right.
And then it was that little condo. And part of the little condo thing is I got that ExposedBrickDC bump of getting shared.
Oh, right. Okay, wait. That was the one that had the like little balcony off the back.
Yep.
Yes, that was a good one.
I got lucky and caught golden hour. Didn't know what I was doing, but just shot it and got it, and people liked it, and it was a good conversation piece. And it was the right price point, which people get into it. And then you saw it and you shared it, and like almost immediately, like I had like a bunch of new followers off the bat. So it's like great. The exposed brick effect a little bit too.
Yeah, no, and I think that really speaks to the power of collaboration, because I think there's kind of this fine line of you want to do your own thing and you want to be a leader in the space, but collaborating with somebody and tapping into their followers and you're sharing your followers with them, like there's a lot of power in that.
And that's been one of the fun things about sharing other agents' properties. Some of them don't really share my video afterwards, and that's fine. Like I don't ask them to do it. I just ask for permission to do it.
Right.
But some of them get a kick out of it, and then they're like, "Hey, do you want to do this property next?" Or like, and like creating those relationships in this business, not only on the content side but on an agent side, has been super helpful. And honestly, there's been a time this year where I got my offer accepted in a multiple offer situation because the person was like, I like your content. Like, that was really cool. You seem like a nice guy. Like you seem like you know what you're doing. I'm like, yeah, I definitely know what I'm doing. Let's do this.
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of people who aren't in the real estate industry don't realize how important those relationships are. And when people go to pick an agent and figure out somebody to work with, like those relationships really do get you across the finish line.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Between that and the lender and like just that little pocket. I mean, when someone's trying to sit there with all those offers in front of them and an agent they don't want mud on their face. They want to tell their client to pick the best one. If they know that they've closed a bunch of deals with that agent and a bunch of deals with that lender, they're like, we know that this person's pretty buttoned up. Can't guarantee the outcome, but we have a higher probability of that being a good option. Right.
That's very true. The other thing that I really like about your videos is that you really take the time to show the place in its entirety. And so you move fast, but you have to in order to show everything. And that's something that I don't always do. I like skip parts because I'm just trying to squeeze it all in. But have you found that that's more valuable if you're going faster and capturing more rather than leaving parts out?
I think that you're going to have people complain about whatever you're doing both ways.
Yeah.
Some people tell me that I look like I had a Red Bull before I filmed it, and it's
rude.
Shaky, and it's fine. But there are certain things, different pieces of content that people can put out there. Like you're really good at catching design and aesthetic and details. And what I give is a little bit more like flow of the house. Like you can actually feel like have a general idea. Now, when I ramp up the speed, you don't exactly know where you just went, but you can kind of feel like you went there.
Right.
So it gives you a little sense of a tour on it.
Right.
So, and then just picking a few things to really highlight instead of like just kind of bumbling around and showing everything. Right.
And so that kind of leads into the conversation we were having before we started recording of how important it is to kind of lean into your expertise or your personality. And so you're right. Like I like more of the design and the aesthetic part. And so that's what I focus on. And I think that sets my videos apart where you really I like that you talk about sort of some neighborhood information too, of like nearby spots. So I think the more that agents can figure out what their expertise is and what personality they have, then they can lean into it. Because it's like you were saying, some agents, like they have really great video, but you don't get attached to it because it's so just bland's not the right word, but just
it's a sales video.
Right.
It's like, here's a highlight video. It's cool. I like it. I kind of saw it. But there's nothing to latch on and relate to.
Right.
And the people that have gotten the furthest with it, I fully believe are the ones that are not afraid to put personality in there.
Right.
Like, I love your personality in your videos. Like, it's very posh, it's on point, but then you sprinkle in some good snark every once in a while and stuff like that, and it's awesome, and it shows up, and people can relate to that.
Yeah.
Max, like, he gets in there, and he has his own personality that attracts and defines him, and people clamor to it. Like, they want to know what's going on.
Right.
Joe Hemley, like, he was just on the podcast recently. I was seeing the thing this morning. Like, there is no better semblance of someone doing it right and having personality. Like,
yes,
what he talks about is so interesting and cool, and like, it's so specific to him. Where if people can find what kind of goes with them, then that helps a long way.
Yes.
And like, mine's not even that profound. Like, a lot of mine is just like, what am I thinking about today? Yesterday I released a video that was entirely about Pokemon. Like, it was just talking about, like, there was a cool Pokemon thing, and so I kind of let that lead the charge, and then I threw some puns in there and did some stuff like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll do some market updates. Sometimes I'll talk about how I went to the Nike store and got new shoes for $35. Like, there's just, it's kind of like a little bit of a life story, and people don't know what they're going to get. And I'm sure some people mute it, and I'm sure some people enjoy it.
Yeah, yeah. No, and I think that even though there are some deviations to what you're talking about, as you described, it's still, for the most part, I think people know what they're going to get when they come to your page.
Yep.
And I think that that's key in building a following. Because if you're all over the place, people are going to come to your page, and they're not going to follow you because they don't really understand what you're all about.
Yeah.
But I think that you've made it very clear from the beginning, these are the kind of tours that I do. You'll get some, funny comments from me, and people are like, okay, yeah, I get this.
Yeah. And you pull your audience all the time. I pull the people that are on my page, like, would you rather see this or that? Or people will put in comments like, hey, can you show more condos? Sure, I'll try to get some more condos in. Like, why not?
Right.
And it's being engaged with what they're looking for and watching. Like, it's one thing for people to say what they want, but then also looking at the interactions, looking at the view counts. Like, what are people really watching?
Yes.
And then trying to figure out what's panning out there.
Yes, totally. And I kind of want to write a newsletter about this, because so much content can be found just in your comments alone. And just by going through those comments, you can probably mine a few really good ideas for your upcoming videos. So it's not as hard as you think. And then I think, but some agents will say, oh, I don't get that many comments. Where do I go? But I think looking at other people's pages and seeing the comments they're getting, like, just take from other people and
other people. Although I think that there's a thing of following everybody in real estate, that everybody does what everybody else does, that you have to pull a little bit away from.
Yeah.
And for a hot second there, I was doing the talking head on thing with, like, the little scroll things talking about how much do you have to do for a down payment, and I didn't want to do it. Like, people weren't watching it. They didn't want to see that. They wanted to see houses. So like, I'm going to put them in houses.
Yes.
And so figuring out how to align that with what you're looking to do is, I think, the key part.
Right. And I think being a real estate agent, you're already walking through houses all the time. So it's like your content's sitting right there. It's just you have to take those extra moments to actually film things. So I'm surprised that more agents aren't capitalizing on that, since they're already there. My question is, because I get pushback sometimes, do you ever get pushback from agents saying they don't want you to film their listings?
There's a few people that haven't made it obvious that they don't want me to do their places, but it's just never available when I can kind of go.
I see.
And that's okay. Like,
yeah,
it's their listing. It's their marketing strategy.
Right.
I'm doing my own thing. If they want it to be a part of their thing,
right,
awesome. If they don't, that's cool too. Like, I totally get it.
Yeah.
A lot of times people are just ignoring my text messages. Like, I'll text them and be like, hey, can I run by and do this? And they'll just not respond. Like, okay,
right.
Easy enough.
Yeah. So I guess our approaches are a little bit different, because I just show up in open houses. And so maybe sometimes people feel a little caught off guard when I show up, because if they aren't familiar with my Instagram or what I'm doing, they're always like, what? Like, explain that to me. I don't understand. But I guess it's nice that you're giving people a little bit of lead time to consider it.
Yeah. And you do open houses. I try to do mine when nobody else is there.
Yeah.
Because, like, it's just, I'll run into people and do stuff like that as I'm bouncing around. So
right. Right.
Plus I don't want them to see that I don't take off my shoes all the time.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. I know. And I only go to open houses just because, real estate's or the blog's like my side hustle. And so I'm working during the week.
Yep.
It would be nice to be able to go during the week when people aren't there. But at the same time, I do like going to open houses because you can see how much traffic is there.
Yes.
And kind of get a sense of, okay, this one's going to go fast. But it does make it more difficult to film because you don't want people in the shot. But sometimes people in the shot's kind of fun.
And with what you're doing, I feel like it doesn't detract from yours. Like for mine, it might be a little bit different just because people would be staring at you like, what is he doing?
Right.
And all that. So I think the way that you do it works out perfectly.
Yeah. So let's talk about sort of the end game, if you will. So you've grown exponentially on social media. What's the goal? Like, is there some sort of follower number that you want to hit or what? Yeah. First, let's answer that question. Is there a number that you want to hit?
No, not really.
Not really.
It's never. So I had a goal.
Yeah.
I went to this conference that was put on from some people at my brokerage in Houston, which was, I feel like, my catalyst point. Like if you actually go back through my feed, there is a video of me sitting at a park playing with my drone. That was like why I was at that conference, what I wanted to take out of it. And I kind of called my shot that like I was going to start doing this thing and doing it consistently and doing it well. And from there, it just kind of took off. And when I came out of that conference, I had two goals. I wanted 2,000 followers on my YouTube channel and I wanted 2,000 followers on my Instagram channel.
Wow. Okay. Wait, when was it that you went to that conference?
That was, I think it was April or May.
Okay. Of this year.
Yeah.
So not that long ago.
Not that long ago.
And now how many followers do you have on Instagram?
23.
Okay. So
like
you blew by your goal by like 20,000.
Within like the first week.
Yeah.
Like
that's amazing.
It went past that. So,
yeah.
And like, I don't know how you felt like the first little while where you started getting more and more traction. Were you like riddled with anxiety about it?
I wasn't anxious about it. It was more of a curiosity of like, okay, why now? Why is it working? And kind of figuring out that puzzle of how can I keep this momentum going without burning out?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's an important piece. I know we're going to probably talk about how much time I put into that stuff and how much time you put into that stuff.
Yes.
But it's, the growth of it, I don't really watch numbers. I think the factor that one, I like to see view count for what people are telling me. I like to see the comments for what people are liking. And then followers, it's a byproduct of everything else. And then I continually do a gut check with it of like, am I still having fun with it?
Right.
Because if I'm ever not having fun with it, it's not like my main source of business. It's not doing all that. It's a fun additional thing that's done a whole lot more than I expected it to.
Right. And to your point of it's a source of business. So it's a platform that you're using to grow your real estate business. And so I've kind of thought about that a little bit in terms of follower count and like the total addressable market of people who might be interested in DC real estate. Yeah. I don't know how big that market is. And I guess, is it still valuable to you if there are people outside of DC real estate following you? Oh, yeah. Yeah? Yeah, definitely. Okay. I haven't had too much come from it yet, but I did have someone that was coming from Hawaii with a VA loan that ended up buying over here. And they found me on Instagram. That's awesome. And I can't figure out how they found me on Instagram, but they did, and it worked out well. That's a good point, because then you could, even if you have this broader audience, they could potentially move here or become a customer, that sort of thing. Because when people start following me from outside of DC, and when I look at my analytics and I see people outside of DC, I'm like, why is this interesting to them? But maybe there is some possibility of them coming to this market at some point. Or maybe they really like your content and they want to create it in their own realm. And if they follow you, like for me, on the standpoint, agents following me outside the area is okay. There's always a possibility that someone has someone else moving or knows someone else moving to DC. And they're like, oh, I follow this really cool guy on Instagram. You should probably talk to him. Right. And so like, then there's a referral opportunity on that. Yes. Okay. That makes sense. But yeah, time. So I imagine you're now pretty proficient when it comes to running through houses. I bet you can film it pretty quickly. Am I right? You'd think. Oh, I'm wrong. So I mean, so let's
let's break it down to a couple pieces.
Okay.
So how long do you spend picking the places that you go to?
So my process is I go through all the listings on Thursday night.
Okay.
And I usually end up picking around 20 properties.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of the batch of properties that I go back and reference throughout the week in terms of where I want to go. And then it's a matter of, are they having an open house?
Mm-hmm.
If they're having an open house, does it fit within my schedule?
Yep.
So sounds like a lengthy process, but it really does not take long to actually select them.
So I go day by day. So because I release something each day.
Yeah.
It's less intense because I don't have 200 properties that I'm looking for.
That's a good point.
But like on Wednesday, Thursdays, there's more to choose from. It's actually like yesterday is a sample of a hard day. Like there was 13 new things in DC. So then do I expand the radius? All right, there's something in Alexandria I want to see. I text the person, don't hear back. All right, there is something else in Brightwood that I wanted to see. Text the agent, don't hear back. So like there's just like going back and forth and trying to do it. And I would say that that's probably one of the hardest things for me is continuing to find things to shoot. Because sometimes, no offense, DC, our houses can get a little boring. Like there's only like a lot of the flips are going to start looking somewhat the same.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that that's probably why people like us get attracted to certain things.
Mm-hmm.
Like you get a school or you get a church, or you get someone that has a very designy thing. Like it steps out a little bit more that you want to see that one because it's different and cool.
Right.
So that actually takes longer than I expect it to be. The actual shooting of it, I usually only do 2 or 3 takes. Sometimes just one. Like, I'm like, okay, that's good enough.
Are you doing the voiceover while you're okay? So
I do that after.
Okay, so you record, take home the footage, and then do a voiceover.
Oh, I'm huffing, and like, you don't want to hear what I sound like during that thing. The opening intro is me talking.
Okay.
And then it goes to a voiceover after that. So then once I shoot it, then I get home, and then editing is editing. That's probably where I've gotten most proficient. Is like I know what to do there and what my style is and how I want to do it. And then what actually takes a while after that is posting it, like figuring like what is my caption going to be, uploading it, and tagging it the way it needs to be. Right. And then I always look at things like 3 or 4 times before I do it because my grammar's awful and people are going to remind me of that all the time. And so I try to give them less ammunition.
Right.
But I would say if I had to tell you how much it takes me for each video, I'd say I budget probably about 2.5 hours total. Okay. Between the time selection and all that stuff. And it'd be a whole lot better if I could just run out and shoot a whole bunch of them at the same time. And sometimes I have done that. But that's also a tiring day too. Right. Like before I went on vacation, I recorded 5 in a day. Wow. So then when I was on vacation, I could continue kind of like throwing out there. Right. Of like what was the next one.
Yeah. And that's my process every week is going to open houses, and I go between, 3 or 5 open houses on the weekend. And then I just put out the content throughout the week. But you're really good about doing a video a day. Like I probably only do like 2 tours a week. And then I do just other short like memes and things like that. So your goal is to keep up the pace of doing 1 a day.
I'll try. Yeah. Like I'll try. Like I can't do it every day. Yeah. And honestly, like I feel bad sometimes when I don't. Like I want to do my video. It's what makes me happy. It's what I enjoy. Right. But sometimes that whole pesky work thing gets in the way of it, and you just have to deal with inspections and negotiations and all that stuff. And I'm lucky to be in a spot where I have support on my team, where if I'm stepping away to do this for an hour, I know it's not going to go to hell in a handbasket because people are getting taken care of, emails are getting responded to, and stuff like that.
Would you ever outsource your content creation, like have someone else do the video for you, or do you not trust someone else to do it the way that you would do it, or do you just genuinely enjoy it and you would rather that take priority?
It's a little bit of everything. I think one of the challenges for other agents is if you can't learn how to do it yourself and you have to do someone's probably going to charge you about $100 to $150 to do what I do. Yeah. And so if you want to do that every single day, you're talking about almost like, $750 to a grand a week
Mm-hmm.
to put content out there, and you're trying to coordinate schedules and all this stuff.
Right.
I enjoy it. I have a dream of at some point becoming a travel vlogger or doing something like that. Oh, we'd love to travel, and I have so much footage that I've just never done anything with. And so the last couple of times I've traveled, I actually have gotten people to allow me to shoot places in their city. So like we were talking about Minnesota.
Right.
I did $1 million house in Duluth, Minnesota, which Duluth, Minnesota for $1 million, you can get a little bit more.
Yeah.
And then we went and stayed at an Airbnb for the 4th of July, and I shot it with the permission of the person that hosted it and shared it on there. And then since then, I've had 2 people with Airbnbs in like the Shenandoah and stuff like that have reached out to me like, hey, do you want to stay for a night and shoot this? And I'm like,
that's awesome.
Yeah, as long as I can bring my dog.
Yeah. So that's a question that I wanted to ask too, is that I feel like content creation is becoming so important for if you're a real estate agent or any kind of entrepreneur, business owner. It has to be part of your strategy. But then I feel like the lines kind of get blurred between, do you identify more as a content creator or as a real estate agent? And I've seen real estate agents who get a lot of traction on social media, and then they kind of pivot a little bit and they're like, okay, I'm going to do more social media strategy or try to get money from speaking gigs or that sort of thing. So do you identify more as a real estate agent or a content creator, or do you think that both can sort of exist simultaneously?
I think both can exist simultaneously. I think that you have to really enjoy both of them to want to do both of them consistently. And I thoroughly enjoy doing the videos. And if I didn't, it wouldn't have lasted a month. Like it would have just completely fallen off. So yeah, I just generally enjoy it.
Yeah. I can identify with that because there have been people that have reached out to me from different cities to say, oh, I want to start this in my own city. Can I do it? And like, can I have your permission? And I'm always like, sure, go ahead. And because 99% of the people burn out and they don't realize how hard it is. But I think the key is, yes, some part of you has to genuinely enjoy it, and you have to have some sort of formula. Yeah. Like the fact that you have a pretty set sort of schedule in terms of, I wake up each day, I go through the new listings of the day, and you start that process. I think just having that framework would be helpful for so many agents who are looking to kind of come up with a content strategy. So have you found that having a schedule and being more disciplined in that way really helps you kind of stay on track?
My only discipline with it is I know that I have to get it done. I wish it was as like regimented as like I wake up and I have set meetings that I have every single day with my team. And then I have the other like closings and showings and everything else. And then it's where can I slot it in from there? Okay. And some days it's easy, and some days it's better that like I only get 15 minutes to think about it. Right. And it's some of the videos that I've done the best are the ones where I'm like, I just need to get something in where I'm in this neighborhood. Let me text this agent. And I run through and do it real fast. And they like it. So I need to get better at getting regimented. And I was actually thinking about this morning because we're losing sunlight, which means like I'm actually losing time during the day of when I can shoot it. Because a lot of times I will shoot towards the end of the day. Right. So like, how am I going to do that? Do I want to do batch? And with less inventory on the market, like not everything's worth shooting. Like,
I agree.
And I want to shoot things that there's something about it, or there's something about the neighborhood, or like something that I want to share on. And if I don't have like a reaction to it, like, I'm a little less wanting to go shoot it.
Yeah. I have those feelings as well. And I try to be transparent about that. And some Sundays I won't go to any open houses, and maybe I'll just post something on my stories being like, there's nothing really good today. And it is what it is. Yeah. And I agree that with less sunlight, moving into winter, there's going to be even less inventory. It could get a little barren.
I might be expanding out to McLean and all those other spots.
Yeah. Okay. So the bulk of your content is DC, right? Yeah. Not the suburbs.
So I've done Tacoma. I've done some Silver Spring. I've done some Alexandria and Arlington. but those are a little bit more sporadic. And people do ask, like, can you do more of those?
Okay.
It's just driving across those bridges are harder sometimes.
Yeah.
And I live over in the hill area, so like I naturally gravitate towards that stuff. And it's those houses are kind of like my love language. So like I tend to have like a little bit more likelihood that I'm going to go over and shoot some of that stuff, but it doesn't have to be that way. And I try to diversify it. Like I'm like, all right, I've just shot 2 things over $1.5 million in Northwest DC. Let's go east of the river. Let's go southeast for a second and check out something over there so we can show stuff that's $500,000 or how much more you can get for $1 million over there.
Have you noticed that your engagement with videos outside of DC proper is about the same, or is it higher, less?
It's about the same.
Okay.
I think it's more about the house itself. Because I'm trying to think back, like there was one I did in Arlington and that one just didn't really hit. But I don't think there was anything specific to that one. And there's a whole bunch of luck. Like you got, Zuckerberg back there pulling some algorithm levers that you don't really know what's happening. But like I just did one in Tacoma Park and that one got like 40,000 views immediately.
Yeah.
And so I think it just really varies and it depends on if there's things to talk about, because the more people that want to interact with it and talk about it, the more likely they are to push it out to their friends and stuff like that.
Yeah, because I think that there is a little bit of a interest of properties in Northern Virginia, in Maryland, because nobody's really covering that consistently. And sometimes I get DMs or comments being like, you should go out there. But to me, it's just, then it becomes too overwhelming. There's too much to look at. And since I think my handle is so specific to DC, the few times that I've tried to film stuff outside of DC, like in Charlottesville or like you did when you were on vacation, people, it doesn't hit.
Yeah.
So
the Duluth one did fine.
Yeah.
Like it was generally fine. But I think that was still more DC people being like, oh my God, don't do that again. I don't want to see all the stuff I'm missing out on. I'm like, it's not winter. Let me show you the video in wintertime and you might change your tune.
Right.
But I'm not opposed to it, and I'm fine going anywhere and everywhere. For me, it's more of like I can't drive across the bridge just to go shoot a video, because what then takes 2.5 hours out of my workday might take 4 hours.
Right.
And then I'm like having some hard conversations with myself about like, is what I'm doing really pushing the business forward, or I'm just passion projecting at the moment. Right.
And the example of the Duluth property, I mean, it led to a cool opportunity to maybe film other Airbnbs. So would you be open to more content creation opportunities outside of real estate? Or do you really just want to focus on your Instagram and YouTube driving real estate business?
It's a good question. I'm totally open to it.
Yeah.
I think one thing that I try to keep on top of my head is like, if I pivot too much, is all of a sudden, is it not what people kind of signed up for?
Right.
But then I go back to, I just need to stay true to what I want to do and how I want to do it, because if I keep doing that, then it's always my most authentic self.
Right. Yeah. And I think that I feel the same way, where I don't pitch brands or anything or reach out to people about things, but very, very rarely will people, like somebody reached out and was like, can I send you some like skincare products or something? You don't have to write about it or say anything about it, but let me just send you some stuff. So I'm like, okay. But I feel like the whole industry of pitching brands, trying to get sponsored content, doing more consumer-based stuff, like that's a whole nother job in itself. But it would be nice, I agree with you, if some opportunities more just like fell in your lap and you're like, why not try this? Because I think that I need to open myself up more to trying things. And if it doesn't get traction, or if people are like, why are you doing this? Then you can pivot. There's no harm in trying things.
I have gone as far to be like, I want to try other things that make it hard and put me in a spot to fail, because then I usually have to use creativity to do something different. And so it's as small as sometimes like a maneuver that I'm going to do when I'm in a building or like something like that. I'm like, I'm just going to try it. I'm going to do it. And if it stinks, people will let me know and we'll go from there.
Right.
But like the more you just stretch yourself, the more fun that you can kind of have as you're going along.
Yeah. So that's a good segue into technical things. So in terms of equipment, software, different apps, kind of walk me through what you're using now, what you like, what you don't like.
Yeah. The most popular questions I get is like, what are you doing? How are you doing it?
Yeah.
It's an iPhone, it's a gimbal, and I use CapCut.
Okay.
And that's it. Like it's all in my pocket. I can put it in my little bag and be on my way, and it's super easy. And it's not hard to learn. Like it's really simple to kind of do.
Yeah. What kind of iPhone do you have? What's the number?
So I think what are we going into the 15 this year?
I think so. Like I have 3 little cameras.
That's the one I have.
3 little cameras? Okay.
Yes. So I do, I have whatever the most recent one is, and I will probably upgrade it this year because it's a business expense at this point,
right?
In my opinion.
Yep.
And I have my hands all over my camera and stuff all the time. Like I'm constantly trying to clean my lens and do stuff like that.
Gosh, yeah.
And so I'll check it out first to make sure that it's worth it. But I think overall I'll probably upgrade phones when the new one comes out, just for the sake of it.
Yeah. Because for a while when I was filming, I was getting all this streaking on like from lamps and stuff and lighting. And I was like, what is this? Like something is wrong with the optimization on my camera setting. Like, and I just had a dirty lens. I was like, this is so embarrassing. I just need to wipe my lens.
I keep a little microfiber cloths and stuff in my bag at this point. So I can try to clean it before I go.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was so frustrated thinking that there was something wrong with my like software, but no, it's just a dirty lens. Yeah.
You had the opportunity to learn and you went from there.
Exactly. Let me see if we're kind of churning through these. I'll leave it up to you if you want to talk about brokered by Real, like what is Real, if you want to do that.
Yeah.
And we can also talk about renting versus buying, but we probably only have like 10 or 15 more minutes.
So let me ask you this. Okay. Who's the target audience usually of these? Is it actually like first time home buyers or is it like agents?
I think it's a lot of agents listen to this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's, we'll do both.
Okay.
But I'll talk about the second piece of it a little bit differently than I would like a person that's like a first time buyer.
Okay. Well, I'll just go ahead and lead in this. Your website says brokered by Real. What is Real?
So it's a brokerage. Yeah. So it is, we changed over to Real this year, and the pivot point for us was, as you know, we talk about a lot. I love content creation. I love people that are optimizing it. And I started getting part of these little Facebook groups and stuff like that of different people doing it on the YouTube and on Instagram and all this stuff. And I started noticing that logo kept popping up on a bunch of people that I was following. So it was more of like a curiosity, and they're not a brick and mortar traditional one, and they're not big yet in DC, but I feel like they're going to have a little bit of a notch of a footprint, and we're trying to help them grow it here.
Nice. So is this your first time affiliated with a brokerage that's no brick and mortar?
Yes.
And how has that been different, or does it not really make a difference?
So we own our own office.
Okay.
So that's always been kind of a thing. Like if you don't have your own office, it might feel a little bit differently, but our whole team goes into our little spot all the time anyways. We didn't really use the brick and mortar offices that much for the brokerage that we were at previously. And so that aspect of it wasn't there, but also I really like the ability to pull on a national level of what's going on. So like there's a big core group of like people that are doing things far and beyond what I'm looking to do. And one of those things is really, I wanted to up my YouTube game this year. And I kind of got a little sidetracked with some of the Instagram stuff.
Right.
But I'm still posting pretty consistently there and learning and doing things. And so it's like anything else. If you want to learn how to do something, surround yourself with the people that are doing it better than you are. and the ability to join those classes and do that stuff and just have access to those people nonstop made it, for me, a no-brainer.
Yeah, that makes sense. About how many real agents are in DC?
So in the DMV total, I think that there's like 300 and something.
Okay.
But that's reaching pretty far. Like you have some people that are more out in like the Reston area.
Mm-hmm.
You have like Phil Gertis that's over in Annapolis area. We're one of the bigger teams in DC, but we're definitely the biggest team for real in the DC area.
Yeah.
And so it's slowly coming along, but we're seeing more and more people kind of pick up and check us out, or at least ask questions about it. So.
Right. Okay, let's talk about renting versus buying. I know that that's probably top of mind for a lot of consumers and a lot of real estate agents. The fact that interest rates are the highest they've been in 20 plus years. Affordability is the lowest it's been in 40 years.
Yep.
So those two statistics are pretty staggering. So how has this shift affected your business, and what are you kind of telling people who are interested in getting into real estate? First, let's talk about people that are maybe interested in getting into real estate as real estate agents. Is this a good time to do it? And then we can talk kind of about the consumer side.
I think it's always a good time to try to get into it. I think it's a matter of who you line yourself up with. It's, you always hear the stories of the people that got into the business in 2008, 2009 when the market was crashing, and they're some of the best agents out there right now. There's some fundamental things that you learn about how you have to do the business in a harder market that are easy to gloss and skate over if you get into a market where it seems like everybody wants to buy a house. So you get to create some better habits, and your spending habits probably aren't as high at that point. You're probably like, scrounging, making it work, maybe doing it a little part-time, maybe having some kind of side gig to help make everything work for a little while. I think it's more about finding the right opportunity to get into the business. Like I came in with Jason Martin and like he brought me into pretty much just open doors for his clients. And through that, I got to see more transactions and more experiences in my first year than anybody. So like my level of ramping up and learning just really took off. So I think that there should be some type of apprenticeship that comes with becoming a real estate agent. And it might be that the qualifications over time change, but it's not that hard to become a real estate agent. Like, we all did it. We all know it. Like, it's cool. It's fine. But at the same time, there could be a lot to take out from learning from certain people and how to do things the right way. Because there's too many opportunities where you're trying to make a decision and you can't get someone else on the phone and you're trying to advise someone else on what to do. You've had your license for 3 minutes and you're like, sure, I can help you negotiate this thing, but you really don't know what the contract says. So I think that that's the key thing, is like find that apprenticeship. Suck it up, make less than what you think you would earn if you went on your own, but like value time and experience so much more.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally true. And I think joining a team is so key in the beginning to get that exposure and have somebody that you can talk to and ask questions, because if you just kind of start trying to do things on your own, it's really hard.
It can be it's still nerve-wracking. I still call people on my own team all the time, be like, hey, this happened, what do you think about this? Or like my title attorney, like, oh, what the contract says this, what would your interpretation be? Like, and that's after 7-8 years or something like that of experience of doing this. And so you can always be learning, and surrounding yourself with people is a good thing. And I give it to people that have like became top end agents by getting out there and doing it themselves. I couldn't do that. I would not have made it in this business if I tried to do it that way.
So given the market, and more people I think are hesitant about buying and maybe thinking more about renting rather than buying, how are you sort of positioning the current market conditions to your clients? And are you seeing more of a demand for renting? And if you are, would you ever consider rental content?
I have been asked about the rental content, and I haven't gotten to it yet, but there's like Lease DC on TikTok and stuff like that. I think that there is some good leasing content out there. I think I might do it if I'm like in a pinch and I need more to talk about. I have reached out to a couple places for Airbnbs in DC to try to highlight them.
Yeah.
I haven't had anyone accept yet, but we'll see.
Yeah.
And then in terms of like the conversation of how I approach it with people, I mean, the reality is you can get more for what you pay in rent physically than what you can get if you purchase a place right now.
Yep.
The question is what is your longevity goal of that scenario? Like, are you looking to get something for 5 to 10 years? Then I'd probably aim towards trying to get something sooner than later, because it gives you more chance to get something, pay it off. Everyone, like, not everyone, I think everyone's officially gotten it. Like everyone, like, for a little while loved Date the Rate and whatever it is. And now everybody hates it, which is funny. And there'll be some long-term truth to that. I don't know if we're going to see anybody refinancing all that soon. Like, I
agree.
I don't know if they're going to drop the way that people think it's going to. I also don't think that the inventory is going to I think we're going to be in this log jam for a while. I think we're going to be in a issue with inventory for a long period of time. And I've never been in the market where there was enough inventory. The closest we ever got was last winter when interest rates went up for the first time and nobody wanted to buy. And now people have kind of like gotten used to the rates and kind of going through it. But I think it's a longevity conversation first. And if the longevity conversation makes sense, then you can kind of go from there. If you're looking to buy a place, but you want to like sell it in like 2 to 3 years, I'm like, probably not. Like I'd probably just save it. Agents cost a lot. Like cost of sale is there. Like kind of understand what you need to do there.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a good answer. We only have about 5 more minutes. Is there anything else that you want to talk about that we haven't talked about?
Man, oh man.
I feel like we covered a lot.
I do feel like we covered a lot. We can, I wanted to talk to you about your process, so that's good. We kind of got that in there. Ooh, do I get to ask you questions?
Sure.
Okay. So I'm taking over the interview now. Here we go.
Okay.
So, Jamie, who are the people that you're following that you get the most influence from at this point as you're developing your own brand and your own name?
That's a good question. So I follow you, of course. Yeah, I follow Max. I also follow more like DC lifestyle bloggers as well. People who might cover more of like restaurants or things to do in DC. Just because I think that helps you see, okay, what kind of camera work are they doing? What things are they covering that are interesting? And also a kind of trick that I've taken too is by following other people who are trying to create content. A lot of the times they're already using a trending song. They're using hashtags that you should be using. So even though they might not be completely in your vertical in terms of the content that they're creating, following them is still good to pick up on those little things.
Do you believe in hashtags?
So the latest thing that I've heard about hashtags is now it's like 4 to 7 really specific ones. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm going to lean into it because it's less work.
Yeah, it sounds better, right?
Yeah. I think one thing that I think I'm going to talk about in an upcoming newsletter is just how different, and I don't know if you see this too, how different the engagement levels are between carousel posts. Do you ever do carousel posts? You only do video?
I'm so basic. Like I just do the same thing every day.
Well, okay. So carousel posts for me are really great in terms of engagement, but they do nothing in terms of increasing following. All of the increase in following all comes from video.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, but I think it's important to maybe have both to kind of, one's nurturing your audience, the other one is trying to grow your audience. But that's been something interesting that I've seen lately. It's
something I need to get tactic. Like I don't have a tactic. Like you look at like, I see people come on Instagram all the time. And they're like, see how I got this many followers, read caption below.
Right.
I'd be like, I kind of just did a lot of the same thing over and over again. Like that's about it. And so that's, I think that there's something interesting to be said about like who you follow and what you're looking at too. And I think one thing to highlight is you're not following real estate agents that much to figure out what you're going to do.
No.
And I don't either.
I would follow more agents if they were doing creative things.
I mean, there's certain people that, like, when I do someone's place, I usually end up following, so I want to tag them and do all that stuff. So there's all that. And people put out some amazing content, not consistently, but some amazing content. But because of the nerdiness of what I've been getting into, like, I'm more likely to follow people that are like content creators. And like, what are the cool transitions they're doing and music that they're using and stuff like that. And that stuff is more exciting to me. So that my feed ends up being more of that and less real estate agents.
Yes.
As opposed to, like, for a while, I would only have like real estate agents on my thing. And I'd be like, looks good. Okay, I get it. Like, it's cool.
I wish that more real estate agents were doing the kind of thing that you're doing, because ultimately the root of what ExposedBrickDC is a curation of the real estate market. And if more agents like you would come out and put out cool video, so I don't have to go capture cool video, I'm all for that. And so, like you mentioned, I shared one of your videos because that was a property I was interested in too. And I was like, okay, great. John already captured it. Here we go. So, PSA to real estate agents, if you get a cool video and it's a property that I'm interested in, I will repost it. So get out there and do it.
And how's the growth of your stuff going, of like actually, like, because let's take a second here. So Jamie has run ExposedBrickDC, and now she has come up with a side brand of that to help dive into what all that looks like.
Yes.
And so you have a newsletter, you have a subscription base.
Yes.
And you're kind of doing like an open it all and like check out what I'm doing. Like,
yes.
How did you come about that, and how's it going so far?
Well, because I think the reality is there's so much that I want to be doing on social media that I just don't have time to do. And so it's almost like the newsletter, it's a weekly newsletter geared towards real estate agents or real estate professionals. You can be a stager, a photographer, anybody that's trying to grow a brand, and giving insight into strategy on how to do that. But then also, here's real stuff that I don't have time to post that I think is interesting. So it's almost like, here's my drafts folder along with some strategy. So that's kind of how and like idea.
Some internal dialogue.
Yes. Yeah. Because I have a lot of thoughts about like the media landscape as a whole. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for content creators right now. So I just want to really make sure that people are tapping into that.
Yeah. That's interesting and awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you have like 8 jobs now. So
yeah,
good,
I know.
Good job.
I know. Well, thanks, John. I really appreciate you coming on. And this is really interesting. And I hope that the content was helpful for real estate agents, because I think that what you're doing is really great and a lot of people can learn from it.
Well, thanks for the coffee.
Coffee.
Thanks for listening to Keyed In with your hosts, Max and Brent, unlocking the minds of the industry's top real estate professionals. For more information on selling your home, find us online at keyedinpodcast.com. Remember to subscribe to Keyed In on Apple Podcasts or wherever you like to listen to podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at Keyed In Podcast, at Rabin Max, and at Brent E. Jackson. And follow Max on TikTok at MaxwellRabin_properties.